Hello everybody at JoomlaDay Sydney. I'm so excited to talk to you. My name is Jen Kramer and I'm located all the way up in America in Boston. It's in the upper right hand corner of the United States, up where it snows lots and lots. And Dex has asked me to come here and speak to you today about Joomla 3.0. So a little bit about me before I get started. I've been working with Joomla now. This is my 7th year working with Joomla. I started working with Mambo back in the day and transitioned into Joomla. And I built websites with Joomla professionally for that entire time. But earlier this year I made a bit of a transition. These days I'm doing more with teaching, specifically teaching web design and web development to a number of institutions, as well as continuing to make videos for lynda.com. Just a few weeks ago I had a new title released. It's called Up and Running with Bootstrap, and yes, that's Twitter Bootstrap that happens to be incorporated into Joomla 3.0. And you may also be familiar with some of my other titles like Joomla 2.5 Essential Training or Migrating from Joomla 1.5 to 2.5. At the end of this month, I'm going to be headed back to lynda.com to record my 11th and 12th titles with them, so that's pretty cool. And I am just having a fabulous time teaching web design. Right now I'm teaching at Harvard Extension School. That is, yes, associated with Harvard University here in the Boston area. And I'm teaching a course on multimedia and one on content management systems. And I'm also teaching at the Community College of Vermont, where I am teaching a course on web metrics, so specifically Google Analytics, Google AdWords, and search engine optimization. So I wanted to move on here to what's going on with our Joomla 3.0 and the wonderful new features that you can find inside of it. So you can probably tell looking at my computer screen, I'm running a computer. It's a nice Dell laptop. It's running Windows 7, and I'm running WAMP, which is one of the 3 ways that you could run Joomla right there on the computer in front of you pretty quickly and easily. WAMP, XAMPP are both good on the PC platform, and XAMPP and MAMP being good on the Mac platform. And so far what I've done is I've unzipped all of the Joomla files and dragged them into the directory in WAMP. And I've made a database, and now I'm here on the installation screen. So I'm sort of assuming that you have a little bit of background in how to install Joomla. You've done it before. Really, there's not a whole lot that's different here, but the screens are definitely rearranged, and things are put together a little bit differently, so I wanted to be sure to walk you through that process. So I'm going to start here at the beginning on the configuration screen, and first of all, you'll notice that I can select a language for this website. This will be the first installation language. You can, of course, add as many languages as you wish after the fact, after this is installed. But here on the main configuration screen, we'll go ahead and enter some information. This will be JoomlaDay Sydney. The next thing this asks you for is a description. This is the meta description, the global meta description that will be incorporated into meta tags and used on every page of the website. So you can go ahead and type something in here. Celebrating Joomla down under. I can type in my admin email address, jen@jenkramer.org, and of course I can put in my username and password. So admin and admin, right? Remember, of course, that the username and password are absolutely critical. It's your very first line of defense in keeping your Joomla site safe. So what I would recommend, even though I'm telling you to do what I say and not what I do not use admin and admin as your username and password. I'm going to do it because I'm running this right here on my local computer. This site's never going to go live. But if you are ever going to put your Joomla site out there on the internet, you definitely want to pick something different for an admin username and password, something that's not guessable. And encourage your clients to do the same. You know, names of your pets, names of your children do not make good passwords. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. Scrolling down the page a little bit further, I can put the site offline as soon as I install it if I wish. That is something that is new in Joomla 3.0 and a very nice little feature If I said yes here, what would happen is that when I went to take a look at the front end of the website, I would be required to log in with the username and password that I just created to see the front end of the website. And I'm going to go to the next screen. It's going to ask me for a bunch of information here. So, database type, the host name and the username is root. The password is blank. Why? Because that's the way WAMP configures its copy of PHP MyAdmin, and I haven't bothered to create a new user to attach to the database. Again, this would be a very prime place for you to put it to actually create a real database username and a great password, since you really only have to enter it once right here in the installation process. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in my database name, which I think I called JoomlaDay. As you saw before in Joomla 2.5 and a little bit earlier, it will create a randomized table prefix for you. That's great. Go ahead and let it choose whatever it wants. And then we can just leave the old database process here. I'll leave it to backup, although this is a brand new database. There's nothing to back up. Then I'm going to hit install again. And what we wind up with is some interesting choices. Previously, we had one set of sample data. In this new version of Joomla, we have 5 versions of sample data. And Steve Burge from OS Training did a great article on the differences here between the types of sample data that are available to you that you can take a look at. Basically, as you might expect, blog English would be configuring Joomla like a blog, including supporting modules and blog post type of things. Brochure would be an example of a website, a brochure website. Default is the sample data you've all come to know and love. I think Learn Joomla English is something pretty similar to that. It might be the stripped down version, and I might have those two backwards, as I don't really remember. And the test English is something that the Joomla Bug Squad has been using to test Joomla 3.0 through the testing process. So it's got a lot of good testing data in it. I'm just going to go ahead and pick the blog because that's something new that you haven't seen before if you haven't looked at Joomla 3.0. There's a few last little things that I can configure down here. Some of this stuff are things that we used to see on the very first screen of installation in Joomla, which kind of scared people off a little bit here. Like with the recommended settings, I have display errors and output buffering are turned on by default here in WAMP. And these are just recommended settings, so it's okay that they're only set to that they are set to on and they're not set to off. But you know, some people got really freaked out by that. So now they're sort of buried. They're at the end of the installation process. They're down near the bottom. This has also done a very nice pre-installation check. One of the important things to check and make sure is that your PHP version is 5.3.1 or higher. That is really, really important. You won't have an issue if you're running WAMP, XAMPP, or MAMP and you've downloaded that fairly recently. But if you are working on a web host, unfortunately, many web hosts out there are still running Joomla 5.2 of some flavor or another. Now, if that web host comes configured with something like cPanel, there are some buttons in there that you can use to upgrade your version of PHP, generally speaking on a directory by directory basis. And that's great because you can easily upgrade to 5.3 or 5.4, but be aware that if you attempt to just install Joomla 3.0 out of the box on a server with an old version of PHP, things may not go well for you. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back on up to the top here and I'm going to go ahead and say install. These screens might look familiar to you if you're familiar with a Kiva backup, and that's because that's part of Nicholas's contribution here to Joomla 3. And finally, we get an answer here that Joomla is now installed. And we can remove the installation folder by clicking the button. I love this addition. That was new in 1.6 or 1.7, I forget at this point. That was a great addition. And now I can either go to the site or to the administrator side of things. So I'm going to start just by going to the site, just so that you can see what that looks like. So this is the default blog that's put together here. Remember, this was the blog English sample data. And this is built using a template. I believe this is the one called Protostar, which was put together by Kyle Ledbetter, who spearheaded a lot of the Joomla user interface development this time around. And it incorporates the use of Bootstrap, that HTML5, CSS3, jQuery framework that comes from Twitter. Twitter, the company, not to be confused with Twitter, the application. And if you make this screen a little bit smaller, I'm going to go ahead and put this a little bit narrower. You'll see that this is somewhat responsive, and that the page is going to snap as things get smaller. You can see that things change on the page. So here's the search box now that has shown up underneath. As you scroll on down the page here towards the bottom, we actually get down to some navigation, and the modules that were on the right now appear underneath. And as I continue to make this page smaller, you might see another change here. That was just JoomlaDay Sydney jumping down to another line. Okay, so long around in here is about the width of a mobile phone. And if I scroll on down the page here, you'll see that we have a series of blog posts here and some stuff underneath. So this isn't really a lot of different modifications of media queries. Sometimes you'll see these sites, these responsive sites that are set up so that they have a version for a desktop and a version for a tablet oriented one way, a tablet oriented the other way, a phone oriented one way, and a phone oriented the other way. This has really just got sort of two major orientations to it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this out back again, watch it snap back to something different. You might be wondering about these buttons here. This is the old print and email buttons. And if we were logged into the front end of the site, you would also see an edit button as part of this. That's the pencil icon that you used to see that would show up in the blog. That pencil icon would now show up here as an icon with the word edit next to it. But only, of course, if you're logged into the site with the right credentials. Okay, so that's the front end of the website. Let's take a look at the back real quick. So I'm going to open up another tab and go to the administrator side of this. And I'm going to log in. And as you can see right off the bat, this looks very, very different than what you've probably been used to if you've worked with Joomla 1.5 to 2.5. The layout is quite different than what you've seen before. So previously when you logged into Joomla, you would see a whole bunch of icons here on the desktop and then a right column with some accordion panels. Well, those accordion panels are now essentially here in the middle. They're listed one right under the other. And over here on the right side of the screen, you have where the icons. And the icons are now listed one after the other. So you can scroll on down here and see that these are all pretty much the same shortcuts we've always had available to us on the desktop here in Joomla. And as always, those shortcuts are replicated here. If you go ahead and go through the navigation at the top of the screen, you'll see that there are many, many options up here on the top. And they're more or less arranged the way Joomla 2.5 had things arranged in terms of the configuration of these screens. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the obvious screens that you're going to use all the time. If we go into, for example, the article manager, just go straight into the article manager first, you'll see that this screen is also very, very different. The buttons are now going here across the top of the page from left to right. Watch for the big green new button over here on the far left-hand side. That's usually where it's located. And then buttons are added along here, of course. Those buttons are going to depend on who you are in the user hierarchy. We're logged in as a super administrator, so we have everything here. And as you create other user groups in the ACL part of Joomla, you may have some of these buttons or very few of these buttons. Over here on the side are the little screens that you can switch between. These were available in Joomla 2.5, but I thought they were always kind of buried. They were hard to notice that they were there. But you can switch, of course, to categories here just by clicking on featured articles, just by clicking on those names. And underneath of that, rather than the filters going across the top of the page here, particularly filters that are useful to those of us who are web developers, not so much to the clients. They tend not to use these so much. Across the top here are ones that clients like to use, like title. They'd like to sort this page by title or by category or something like that. They want it in ascending or descending order, and they want some number of options on the page. Things like over here on the side, like whether it's published or unpublished, those filters are still here. They're just located now in 2 locations. You know, what access list they're assigned to, who the author is, what language they're written in, and if you have a multilingual site. And of course, you can set your status here. I can click on the green check mark and I can unpublish, or I can publish my articles. So now if I go ahead and click on the About article here, I'm into an editing screen. One of the nice things about this new layout is that the editing window is extra big. I heard this from clients a lot, that they would get frustrated by the little window at the bottom, whether it's JCE or TinyMCE, which is what I have here, that it was a small window for typing in, and they got a little bit frustrated by it. Now we have a nice big window for it. What's more, what is on this screen is really more or less what your client is going to use. It's the big box down here in the bottom. It's the title of the article with its matching category. Underneath of the editing window, you have the ability to add your read mores or your page breaks or put in an image, just like you always have. Over here on the right side of the screen are things like whether it's been published or unpublished, the access level, who can see it on the front end of the website, whether it's featured and what language it's in. Down here at the bottom of the screen, this is something that I believe was new in Joomla 2.5. This is the concept that you can have your client put in an image, as you see here, associated with the introductory text for the article and information for the full text of the article. This would standardize the look of those images, put them in the same place every time. You can standardize some of the text and so forth, and then you can incorporate this into your layout so that articles look consistent one after the other. This is kind of, sort of, like K2 or any of the other CCKs, but this is truly a stripped-down version of it. There's not a lot of flexibility with this particular functionality, but that is what it's here for. And the good news is that in your article options, you can turn off all of that configuration down there on the bottom. Inside of the article options, you can have none of that appear. If you're not using it on the site, that's a great thing to do, because then your client doesn't try to use it and they won't get confused by it. They know that there's this box, and that's where they go and they type and they put everything they need in the box. But all of the stuff we've always come to know and love in Joomla, it's all still here. It just goes across the top as tabs at this point in time. So this tab talks about when it's going to start and finish publishing, how many hits it's had, that kind of thing. Here's all of the article options. Remember, the article options would override what you might have set at the global article options. But just to clarify, even down here at the bottom, let's see. Well, maybe I'm confused. Position of the article info. That has to do with the images and the links that I just showed you at the bottom of the main editing window, whether that information would appear above or below the article when it's displayed on the front end of the website. So that's kind of nice. This is the screen that I was just thinking of. The configure edit screen is, for this particular article, what are we going to actually show our clients? This is really a wonderful thing that you can use to adapt your administrator interface very quickly and easily and make an easier screen for your clients. If you're not going to use those images and links that I just showed you here at the bottom of the article details, this whole chunk of stuff down here in the bottom, and in my experience most people don't use it, what you can do is you can turn this off. The administrator images and links hide this on the back end of Joomla. So it gets rid of all of those articles and links at the bottom on the administrator side, the view we're looking at here. And on the front end, you can also get rid of it so that if your client's only editing from the front end of the website via the edit button, they can or cannot see that information there. Maybe you want it available in the back end but not the front end, or the reverse. But remember, when you configure things in this screen, you're configuring them on an article by article basis. You're not configuring things globally for the whole website. So you're going to make a lot of work for yourself if every article you create, you go in here and you change these settings. These same settings here for configure edit screen are available in the Joomla, the global article options. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Finally, we have things like metadata options and the permissions that we've all come to know and love. These are all available as their own tabs. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and get out of this article. Since it's already created, it's already published, and all the rest of that. This button here is the button to get to the article options. And if you click this, you'll notice that these are all of the same kinds of options that we've had before. They're now in Technicolor with hide and show, cool little buttons. This comes from Twitter Bootstrap. This is some styling that's built into that. Here is the editing layout tab. Shows you globally what I just went through on an article by article basis. This will change exactly what's going to show in that editing layout globally. So that's really nice. And you can go ahead and flip through these. I do want to point out that if you take a look over here on the left side of the screen, what's going on here? Well, let me hit the cancel button. This, oh, it actually puts me back to the article manager. Isn't that nice? Well, if I go back to System Control Panel, you'll notice that some of these options are globally located on the left side of the screen. If I go into the global configuration, or go into the global article options, or I go into the global user options, or the global template options, I had all of these links down here at the side. These are every options that are available to us everywhere throughout Joomla. So where we used to have to go tracking all over the website to configure options in every silo that we happen to work in, they have all been centralized now into one big column here, which is really quite nice. So that I can hop on in here and I can configure a whole bunch of things one after the other relatively quickly. So that's a very nice addition. Okay, let me show you the menu manager. This is something else that you are likely to use quite often. One of the things that bothers me about this menu is it says about and then home. And I'd rather have it say home and then about. You guys are used to reordering menus all the time, and you always used to take or use something called what I call the Netflix arrows. Netflix is a service here in the United States that allows you to watch videos online. You can pull a whole bunch of videos into a cart, you have a whole list of them, and then you can reorder them using these little arrows that you can nudge them up and down the list. Well, fortunately, we've entered modern interface design. What we can do now, over here with these little 3-dot icons on the side, we can click and drag to reorder, which is just so fabulous and so needed. Clients were very confused by those ordering arrows, because sometimes the arrows were there and sometimes they weren't there, because it would depend on whether we'd sorted by title or we'd sorted by ordering. And clients were also very confused by the number boxes that were next to it. You go type in a whole bunch of numbers in the boxes and things would not reorder. Well, that was because you had to hit the icon, the little save icon, which was actually a floppy disk. And do kids even know what floppy disks are these days? I mean, do they even recognize what that thing is? So these were all questions that I had, and I was wondering how long the floppy disk icon would be sustainable in Joomla. But I believe this is the first version of Joomla that is free of floppy disks. That is something that is new here inside of menus. But the big thing, and the thing you're probably all waiting to hear about, is the new templates. So as you saw here on the front end of the website, this is a new template that comes with Joomla. There are two front-end templates that come with Joomla. One is this one called Protostar, which is built using the Bootstrap framework. The other is Bees 3, which looks remarkably like Bees 2. And then on the back end, we have two administrator templates. This time we have one called ISIS. That's the template that we've been looking at here. And Hathor is still present in this version of Joomla to maintain accessibility. It looks a lot like the Joomla 2.5 interface, but it's been updated with some of the new icons and buttons here from Joomla 3.0. So let's go ahead and take a look at the template manager and see how things have changed. So if I go to extensions, template manager, you see here that I have right now my 4 templates that I just described to you. Notice that next to each one of these is a little icon. It's a gray do not enter kind of sign, although those are usually red, and it says no preview available. You can enable preview in the options. Now, those of you who have been hardcore Joomla people for a long time know the TP=1 trick. You go and you stick TP=1 and the next to your URL, it shows you all the module positions in your template. It's the way we had to do it in Joomla 1.5. In Joomla, somewhere around 1.7, I think, maybe 2.5, we started to have icons that were next to these template styles that you could click on and see all of those module positions in another window, which was really quite cool. But it wasn't obvious because sometimes those little icons were gray and sometimes they were white, and they never really screamed click me. So and I actually found them one day by accident. I didn't even know that they were there. This style of button is much more obvious, which is great. So one of the things that you know if you work with 1.6 to 2.5 is that if you want to preview your module positions, and you almost always do while you're developing a website, you are going to have to turn on that feature inside of Joomla. So to do that, under Options, this is your Template Manager options. There's only one option here. It's Preview Module Positions. So we're going to enable that and say Save and Close. And now you'll notice that our icons have changed to an eyeball when there's a preview that's available. As always, those previews are only available to the front end of the website. They're not available to the administrator templates. So if I click on Preview here next to Protostar, this opens up another window for me which shows me my module positions here inside of this particular design. Very, very helpful. And in fact, this time they're even readable, which is really nice. They've been restyled so that they're not semi-transparent the way they used to be. You can actually read what's written here. So as I get older, I tend to value that. Anyway, so there we go. There's all of the module positions. There's not as many module positions in Protostar as there are in Bees. The flip side of that is I don't really feel like you need a lot of positions in Protostar. I think it's actually a very flexible template with a lot of great options. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at some of those. So if I go into my default style, which is the Protostar template, and I click on that, the first tab of my template style gives me the generic information about that particular template. Great. Then in the Options tab, this is the customized options that you can code if you know how to code your own custom template. These are the template options that you can code as part of that. So this has given us some options here for our colors, both the template color and the background color. So this right here, 08C, is a shade of blue. It corresponds to this little stripe across the top of the page. It also corresponds to the words here on the page that are blue. And the background color is a very pale shade of gray, and that is this background color over here. So I could change this, and look at that. We have an actual color picker inside of Joomla. Isn't that wonderful? So if I change this, let's say I'm going to attempt to get a lovely shade of orange, or maybe I'll just go for a lovely shade of purple, like that. That looks great. Select. And if I want to change my background color, no one has ever accused me of being a graphic designer, those of you graphic designers who are shuddering out there in the audience. If I go ahead and pick sort of a pale shade of yellow, hopefully those actually will show up on the recording. I can also pick a logo and very easily change, or not change. Right now in the blog post, the logo position is the text up here on the top that says JoomlaDay Sydney. If I had a big graphic that I'd want to appear up there instead, I can certainly upload that right here through this interface, which is great. I can change the title for the site, a new title, and I can put it into description, JoomlaDay Sydney Rocks. I can also control what font I'm going to use for the headings on the site. By default, this font called Open Sans is the font that's in use here on the website. I can turn that on or turn that off however I wish. So yes or no. I'm going to turn it off just because I can, and I don't want to look for another Google font at this point in time. And the last part has to do with the fluid layout. Bootstrap itself ships with two versions of its layout. They're called static and fluid, which is really quite a misleading name for what's going on with the Bootstrap layouts. Static indicates, I'll just show you, it's the easiest way to do it, indicates that as I make my screen smaller, you see how right now my browser window is big, and all it's doing is adding background width, but the width of this content area here is staying the same. As I make this smaller, until I hit the breakpoints here, breakpoints are part of media queries, which is part of responsive design. As I hit those breakpoints, that is when the page resizes and changes to the next version of CSS. And then once again, nothing changes until I hit the next breakpoint in the series. That is the static grid. Some people would say that that is not true responsive design, because responsive design is built with relative units and it resizes more continually. The big example that everybody shows is my local newspaper, the BostonGlobe.com. This was one of the first major websites that was built using responsive design right here in the Boston area. Ethan Marcotte was a big part of this. And if you notice with the Boston Globe design, what happens is as you make the screen smaller, you see how the whole page is continuing to resize no matter where you happen to be looking. Something is always changing here until you hit breakpoints. And when you hit those breakpoints, then more major changes occur. Like here we just lost our navigation bar. But even as we move here, there's a minor change that goes on up here in the upper left-hand corner. I'm just looking mostly at the header. Even as we make more minor changes to the width of the screen, the overall design continues to expand. So if you want to have that type of responsive design, which was what Ethan Marcotte meant when he defined responsive design as having a flexible grid that continually resized, flexible images that continually resize, and media queries. Those were his definition of what a responsive design was. What you would need to do here is change your layout to fluid. And if we go ahead and say save and close to apply these changes, and we've refreshed the front end of the website, there's my hideous shade of purple. Isn't that lovely? And the yellow you don't even see because I have switched this now to the fluid design. So my design stretches all the way across the page. And as you see here, as I collapse things, then and only then does this banner start to resize. The banner is set to a maximal width here. That goes with the fixed version of this page. But when you go to the fluid design, this banner is a little bit small. So I'd probably need to come up with a larger version of the banner if I'm going to use it. Or maybe I could apply a graphic design effect where it would fade into the background color of the page here, would be another approach. So as I make this page smaller, you see that fundamentally it hasn't really changed a whole lot in terms of its look, but it does stretch all the way across the viewing area. Okay, and if I go back again, and I go back to the Protostar style, and I switch this back to, whoops, not that one, this one, to the static fluid layout, whatever that means. Go ahead and save that, and I refresh the page. Now you'll see, oh, what I thought was a hideous shade of yellow on the background. It looks like that didn't really quite take, and I'm not sure why. Let's see. Well, somehow we've defaulted back to the default gray color. So if I pick something else, how about a hideous shade of green to go with the hideous purple, and we refresh the front end of this website, there we go. Now I've changed the background color of that page. Isn't that great? Okay, likewise, I've just spent a whole lot of time emphasizing the responsive aspects of the front-end design for Protostar. Likewise, on the back end of the website, we have responsive characteristics here as well. So here I am in the template manager as I make my screen smaller. Okay, notice that the page is continuing to contract, and at some point in time, boom, right there, my navigation is collapsed entirely, and my styles and templates are now stacked on top of each other. My navigation is collapsed. It's behind this icon here. And the concept of a navigation bar collapsing and then being hidden behind this icon is a jQuery trick, along with CSS, of course, and that is part of Bootstrap itself. So Kyle has leveraged that to put this together. What we have after that is, here are the main menu items. They're in all caps, like system and users. And here's the sub-navigation. This is what you would get on the drop-down menus inside of the administrator side of Joomla. That means that the screen gets very long. Okay, so you have to scroll down quite a way if you have your navigation open to get down here to the actual meat of the page. So I'm going to minimize that again. And if I make this screen even smaller, say more like a phone size, at some point we have another breakpoint. And the toolbar, now we have another toolbar, and that is for things like making something the default, edit, duplicate, and so forth. So we have two of these drop-down bars here available to us. So what this means is, now that I can make my administrator template small like this, I have some kind of hope of maybe working with this on an iPad or possibly working with this on a phone on the administrator side of Joomla, which is kind of nice. Okay, there are some other things here that I will point out to you. In the back end of the administrator template, if you click on ISIS here, which is our default administrator template, and you go to options, there are some customizations here that are really simple and easy to do. The nav bar color, which I believe is this blue up here on the top, is that, yeah, or the black, because it's black above it, black, and then the blue is the header color. So you can customize this blackish bar on the top. You can customize this blue bar underneath, and you can, whoops, and you can put in a logo. So what that means is, if you are concerned that people will think that your site was built in Joomla and you want to brand it for your particular agency, you could do that. You could put in your own logo here, and you can change the colors on the top and still have a template that looks like Joomla, works like Joomla. The collapse administrator menu here is what I just demonstrated for you, the fact that as you make your browser window smaller, that the menu bars will collapse. That is configurable here. You might want to turn that off if you're only going to work on the desktop. I've made my monitor a little bit smaller to make this video, but normally my monitor is about 1920 pixels, 1920. Very wide. Maybe I want to make my window kind of, smallish like this, so I can work over here on the side and do something else. And if I do that, obviously the configuration of Joomla changes, and it's hidden away my menu, and I really want my menu up in front and center. So I can turn that off. Whether you should display the header, that is the blue bar here. Should you even display this blue bar at all, you can turn that on or off. The status module position is this little bar down here on the bottom. This is what used to be in the upper right corner for Joomla. You can view your site, how many visitors have come to the site, how many are logged in, I think. Or maybe it's how many people are on the front end. I'm not entirely sure on that. I think it's logged in though. How many people are logged into the back of Joomla, and whether you have email and so forth. So you can click on the view site. That will open up your front end of the website in a new tab or a new window, depending on how you have Joomla configured. And by default, that's fixed to the bottom of the screen. You can switch that to top, and what that will do will put that status bar up here on the top of the screen instead, if you prefer that particular view. The other thing that you can change is this concept of the sticky toolbar. As you see, as we scroll up and down the page, my menu is fixed right here. If I turn that off, and then what would happen is, as I scroll down my page, I thought, maybe not, maybe not. Well, I'm not sure what the sticky toolbar is. A fixed sticky location. I would have thought that would have done it, but it didn't. Okay, so I'm going to switch those back to where they were and go ahead and say save and close. And so that's, there's a lot new here in templates, an awful lot that you can capitalize on. And with Bootstrap itself, you can do some amazing things building responsive designs and custom templates now using Bootstrap. If you're not familiar with the Bootstrap website, if you go to getbootstrap.com, this is the definitive site which will tell you about Bootstrap. And what I would encourage you to do is to go ahead and download a copy of Bootstrap and work with it inside of Dreamweaver first. That's what I did, to get a sense for what Bootstrap can and cannot do for those of you who are really into templating. It's got some great text here. Will walk you through exactly how to download it, how to install it, what to do with it. It walks you through the various grid systems that are available to Bootstrap and how those grid systems are configured, so you know how to write the HTML. To generate a grid system like this, here's the HTML that goes with it, and it comes up with all of your CSS is all documented here as well. Bootstrap also comes with things, so you saw the drop-downs in use right there on the website. By the way, those drop-downs, depending on how you have your copy of Joomla 3.0 configured, with that Protostar front-end template, you get drop-downs right out of the box. You don't have to go and find an extension and download them anymore. They just appear. And that's because drop-downs are built into Bootstrap, which is really nice. That is something that people have asked me about for years. Jen, show us how to do drop-down menus. Well, it's here. It's all in Bootstrap. Now you just have to get it working on the Joomla side of things. So drop-downs, nav bars, breadcrumbs, there's all kinds of things that are already styled for you here that are great. Under JavaScript, there's a number of, as they say here, 13 custom jQuery plugins that come with Bootstrap. I have not investigated far enough to know how well or how quickly or easily these might integrate into your Joomla website, but they are here for Bootstrap if you were using it, say, in a copy of Dreamweaver, a static website. So you can certainly take a look at these, and probably with not a whole lot of effort, I would imagine you could put them into Joomla, but that's something that I need to investigate a little bit further. And then finally, Bootstrap has the ability to customize your particular copy. That's what this customize button is. So you don't necessarily need to explore that. The full Bootstrap is inside of Joomla 3.0. It's not been customized. So do take a look at that if you're into templates. All right, so I think I've talked enough. I've given you a sense of what's here inside of Joomla 3.0. The big major changes that come with Joomla 3.0 are, first of all, and they're really all tied to templates in the end. The administrator template is different, and so the organization of the usual buttons and widgets that you're accustomed to, they're all here. They've been rearranged somewhat. Once you get used to the workflow, because of course once you're accustomed to a workflow, it's hard to change. But once you get used to the workflow, I think you'll find it a little bit easier to get around in Joomla's back end. It's definitely easier for your clients to get around. So keep that in mind. It's a real step up for your clients, and fewer options so that they have less opportunity to be confused. And the real power inside of Joomla 3.0 is Twitter Bootstrap, the fact that you can now build responsive templates, leverage that framework, build those responsive templates on the front end. You can also build your own administrator template, as you've always been able to do, but you can make it responsive as well. And so this is great that Joomla's got the ability to move into the mobile age now, right out of the box, which is incredibly powerful. And so good job to the Joomla 3.0 development team. And do take a look at it. So thank you very much. I think Dex is going to try to get me online now, and I'm at home, and I would love to hear your questions. Thanks so much.